Om Jnana-timirandasya Jnananjana-shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Namo Vishnupadaya Shri Gaurapriyamurtaye Srimate Bhakti-vallabh-tirtha Goswami-namine Shri Chaitanya-manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Datati Swapadantikam Vande Nanda Vrajastrinam Padarenum-abhikshnata Yasam Harikato Gita Punate Bhuvanasraya Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya eva cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. Namo Mahavadanyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namni Gauratvishe Namah. He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vrindayai Tulasi Devi Ai Priyayai Keshavasya Krishna Bhakti Pradidevi Satyavatai Namo. Hare Krishna, dear devotees, welcome to today's webinar on Vraja-kathamrita. And today's topic is again going to be Bhagavata-bhakti versus Vraja-bhakti. And I think everyone has joined here. Control the setting here and make sure I don't forget to add people. Cannot go in the sound. Okay, here we go. Okay. So last time we were talking about the different aspects of Bhagavata-bhakti in comparison with Vraja-bhakti, and today we'll further exemplify this. So as we have heard, the difference is mainly in the mood of worship, and it is very important for us to be able to distinguish the two different moods of worship. One is with more opulence, and the other is with more sweetness. So as we will be comparing different verses today from three main scriptures, we can continue that spirit of differentiating between general Bhagavata-bhakti or devotion to God in general and very precise, focused Vraja-bhakti, which is focused on attaining the dust of Vrindavan eternally. So today we are going to start with the Bhagavad-Gita because it's very beautiful actually to see how in these three scriptures there's a gradual increase of Vraja-bhakti and focus on Vraja-bhakti. So we're talking about the Bhagavad-Gita, Srimad-Bhagavatam, and Caitanya-caritamrita. Sometimes our acharyas, they have said that the Bhagavad-Gita is like elementary education, and the Srimad-Bhagavatam is like, you know, the graduate education, from which we then graduate to the Bhagavata-bhakti tradition, and furthermore, of course, Vraja-bhakti tradition, which is also included in the Srimad-Bhagavatam. But then the postgraduate education is the Caitanya-caritamrita, because there we find a very, very clear focus on Vraja-bhakti. Why? Because in Chaitanya Leela, what happens is the same Krishna who was before a bit reserved to give us entry to Vrindavan because he becomes eternally bound up by the love of his devotees. who worship him with Vraja-bhakti. That very same Krishna is now opening the floodgates of Krishna Prema in the form of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and giving out love of God, in particularly that mood of Vraja Prema, of love of God in Vrindavan, in that sweetness of Vraja-bhakti. He's giving that out to one and all. Yeah. So that's why in Caitanya-caritamrita, this Vraja-bhakti is so much stressed. And in one of the purports in the English version of Caitanya-caritamrita, the translation by Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, there he mentions in connection to this topic that the entire creation of the Lord is simply created for the very reason to bring people to that platform of Vraja-bhakti, that they can attain the eternal pastimes of Radha and Krishna in Vrindavan. The entire creation. So even if some devotees, they perfect Bhagavata-bhakti in the mood of Vaikuntha and they become eternal associates of Lakshmi Narayan, that is also a perfection. Yeah. Even then, the actual reason of the entire creation is to bring people to Vrindavan. And for that, of course, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to teach us Vraja-bhakti, to teach us Raganuga-bhakti in particular. We'll talk about that in more detail later. Now we will just have a brief comparison of 3, 4, 5 shlokas of these 3 scriptures, so we can see how beautifully this gradually builds up from the Bhagavad-Gita to the Srimad-Bhagavatam to Caitanya-caritamrita. There's a gradual increase of focus on Vraja-bhakti, Raganuga-bhakti. So in the Gita, of course, we have Krishna speaking to Arjuna. And, it starts with the setting where Arjuna is inquiring from Krishna and Krishna is answering. And then when Krishna speaks, it says, Shri Bhagavan Uvacha, the Supreme Personality of Godhead said. Yeah? It doesn't say that Krishna, the very good friend, the dearmost friend of Arjuna, is speaking. Yeah. So again, this is very, very opulent form of naming the Lord. And of course, this is very important, like we discussed last time, that in the beginning, we have to understand that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And so Arjuna, of course, he knows that in a sense that when he is not in the mood of Krishna's friend, when he is now getting all this special darshan, of Krishna as Bhagavan, then he understands this. But he is asking these questions mostly for us also, so that we can understand all this. So there in the Gita, Krishna says, in the 10th chapter, verse number 8, Aham sarvasya prabhavo matah sarvam pravartate iti matva bhajante mang buddha bhava samanvitaha. I am the source of all spiritual and material worlds. Everything emanates from me. The wise who perfectly know this engage in my devotional service and worship me with all their hearts. So here very clearly, Krishna is talking about all his opulences. Yeah, that he is the source of all spiritual and material worlds. There's nothing in this creation that does not come from Krishna. Yeah. So here, obviously, Krishna is not in the mood of Vrindavan, because he's talking to Arjuna. Also, he's on the battlefield in Kurukshetra outside of Vrindavan, and he's wearing this very opulent helmet, crown-like helmet, and people worship him as Bhagavan, as a Supreme Personality of Godhead. So he's openly declaring his opulence as a Supreme Person. And so here we have a very, very great peak of Aishwarya that we can observe. And then when we read the Srimad-Bhagavatam, that same Aishwarya is still there. It's still mentioned, but there is a gradual transition to Vraja-bhakti, and it's very clear that the ultimate destination is Vrindavan in the Srimad-Bhagavatam, whereas in the Bhagavad-Gita, many people, they read the Gita, they chant the Gita daily, but they are not aware of the glories of Vrindavan. And they may have never visited Vrindavan, although they stay near. Like I meet so many people here in Vrindavan, and they are coming here for the first time, and they're already 30, 40, 50 years old, but they are living very near to Vrindavan. And some of them are even chanting shlokas of the Gita daily. So this glory of Vrindavan is still hidden in the Bhagavad-Gita. Whereas in the Srimad-Bhagavatam, there is a gradual transition from this opulence of the Lord to the sweetness of the Lord in Vrindavan. So to exemplify this, we will now hear the very first shloka of the Srimad-Bhagavatam together. This is 111, Srimad-Bhagavatam. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Janmadyasya Yatonvayati Taratashtarteshvabhikyasvarat Tene Brahma Hridaya Adikavaye Muhyanti Yatsuraya Tejovari Mridam Yata Vinimayo Yatra Trisargo Mrisha Dhamna Svena Sada Nirasta Kuhakam Satyam Param Dhimahi. Translation. O my Lord, Sri Krishna, son of Vasudeva, O all-pervading personality of Godhead, I offer my respectful obeisances unto you. I meditate upon Lord Sri Krishna because he is the absolute truth and the prime evil cause of all causes of the creation, sustenance and destruction of the manifested universes. He is directly and indirectly conscious of all manifestations, and he is independent because there is no other cause beyond him. It is he only who first imparted the Vedic knowledge unto the heart of Brahmaji, the original living being. By him, even the great sages and demigods are placed into illusion. As one is bewildered by the illusory representations of water seen in fire or land seen on water. Only because of him do the material universes, temporarily manifested by the reactions of the three modes of nature, appear factual, although they are unreal. I therefore meditate upon him, Lord Sri Krishna, who is eternally existent in the transcendental abode, which is forever free from the illusory representations of the material world. I meditate upon him, for he is the absolute truth. So here we see very beautifully the introduction of the topic of the Srimad-Bhagavatam, which is a meditation upon Lord Sri Krishna. And in the beginning, there is a big emphasis on his opulences, on his role as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is beyond illusion, by whom everything is put into illusion. But then as we see now, as we progress in the Bhagavatam, gradually, there is a transition to the mood of Vrindavan. And then suddenly, Krishna, who is said here to bewilder everyone, himself also becomes bewildered by the love of his devotees. And then we will have this comparison. And of course, we will try to harmonize this seeming opposing clash of two different truths here. They're not clashing at all. So we will harmonize that. Now, somebody join here and kindly put your Zoom settings on mute, whoever that is. I cannot see the different participants here.
Bindu, put your phone on mute, please.
Okay. Here. Okay. Okay. So let's continue. Now we move on to the 20th shloka. Kritavan kila karmani saharamena keshava atimartyani bhagavan guddha kapata manushaha. Translation. Lord Sri Krishna, the personality of Godhead, along with Balaram, played like a human being, and so masked, he performed many superhuman acts. Okay, it's very interesting because still Krishna is addressed as the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And now it's said that they played as if they are human beings. Yeah? But this is indicating their Nara Lila, their pastime of acting as if they were humans. And then it says they were masked, just like we're wearing masks now when we go out because of the COVID situation. And we are not finding this very wonderful, of course. But Krishna, he is enjoying. Yeah, we are not enjoying our masks, but Sri Krishna, he is enjoying his mask very, very much because he himself chose to wear that mask. This is mentioned here. Yeah, very, very beautiful. Now, as we will see, at one point, because this mask is a very magic mask that Krishna is wearing, at one point, Yogamaya, she is the one who is in charge of masking Krishna. Yeah? Just like Krishna says, Yogamaya samavrita, I am covered by my Yogamaya potency. So the deeper meaning of this is, it's not just, one meaning is that Krishna is covered for those who are not devotees, they cannot understand him. But the deeper meaning really is, one of the deeper meanings is that Krishna is covered. He himself is covered. He himself does not know anymore of his own opulences. He forgets his opulences. And that's the power of Yogamaya. Like we were discussing before, Krishna has signed an eternal contract with Yogamaya that she is now putting him in this divine illusion, yeah, Yogamaya, that he is just a little coward boy playing with his friends and enjoying his Vraja-lila. So here we have this indication. It's not fully explained yet because still it's saying that he is just wearing a mask. So it's indicating in a sense that, okay, you can take off the mask and then he's again, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Bhagavan. So, but actually, if you look from the perspective of Vrindavan, in Vrindavan Krishna, he is not aware that he's wearing this mask. He is fully identifying himself as this beautiful little cowherd boy in the eternal youth, yeah, the eternal Cupid, and he is not aware that he's Bhagavan. In fact, he isn't actually, yeah. That's a very, very deep understanding. Once you're completely immersed in the mood of Braj, then Krishna, he is no more Bhagavan for you, for all the devotees, yeah. They do worship Bhagavan. It's not that Bhagavan is not there in Vrindavan. They worship, like they worship Narayan, or they worship Nrsimhadev, They worship so many divine personalities in Vrindavan. So of course there must be always Bhagavan, but Krishna is playing his Nara Leela. And that is more real than his opulent pastime. So here in this shloka, it's very beautifully described how he is wearing a mask. So still this is, you have to understand, now we're in the transition from the opulence of Krishna to the sweetness. So that's why we are hearing how Krishna is wearing this mask. Yeah? And as we continue in the Srimad-Bhagavatam, then of course, in the 10th canto, which is the beautiful face of Krishna, each, canto has, it's like representing different parts of Krishna's beautiful transcendental body. So finally, when we arrive at his face, the 10th canto, then we really dive deep into Vraja Leela. And there you hear all about Vrindavan and the Vrindavan pastimes. And so here we find descriptions that are very typical for the Vraja pastimes. And we're going to just have a look at one shloka today. And that's from the 10th canto, shloka 30 to 22. It's also mentioned in Caitanya-caritamrita Madhya Lila 893. And many of you will know this shloka, so we can hear together. Naparayam niravadya samyujam svasadu krityam vibudhayusha piva yama bhajan durjara geha shrinkalaha shringrishchatadvah pratiyatu sadhuna. When the gopis were overwhelmed with dissatisfaction due to Lord Krishna's absence from the Rasa Leela, Krishna turned to them and told them, "My dear gopis, our meeting is certainly free from all material contamination. I must admit that in many lives it would be impossible for me to repay my debt to you, because you have cut off the bondage of family life just to search for me. Consequently, I am unable to repay you. Therefore, please be satisfied with your honest activities in this regard." So here, the same Krishna, apparently the same. Of course, we always have to view this in the tattva of Achintya Bheda Veda, that the different forms of Krishna are simultaneously one and different, but in a sense, the same Krishna, who before was saying that everything emanates from me, the Bhagavad-Gita. He's saying now, I'm unable to repay you, my dear gopis. How is it possible? How is this possible? Bhagavan, he has everything in his possession, and everything emanates from him. So it's easy for him to pay anything to anyone, but he cannot. In Vrindavan, he cannot repay his debt to his devotees. So here we see a very clear shift away from these Aishwarya opulences that were still very prominent in the beginning of the Srimad-Bhagavatam, because now we enter into the mood of Vrindavan, where Krishna is forever immersed in very intimate, personal, loving relationships with his most dearmost devotees. And in this aspect of the divine pastimes of the Lord, it is not possible for him to maintain these opulences that he is still clearly displaying in Kurukshetra, in Dwaraka, in Vaikunta, Mathura, etc. Yeah. He can no more display them, and he doesn't want to also. Yeah, he has signed the contract already with Yogamaya that he will be completely immersed now in the sweetness of Vrindavan. where he becomes indebted to his devotees, and he openly declares that, and he takes pleasure in that. And he takes pleasure in becoming bound by the love of his devotees. But like we were mentioning before, he is still hesitant to give entry to these wonderful relationships to everyone, because he thinks that, I'll become bound up so much by so many people. And so he's still hesitant in the form of Rajendrananda and Sri Krishna, but in his Gora Lila pastimes, now finally he has understood the love of Radharani, especially, and the love of all the Vraja-vasis. And to honor that, he has deeply understood that love, which is completely beyond any love that we can ever imagine or taste in this world. So to honor that, he opens up the floodgates of Vraja Prema to all devotees who are there in this planet. He gives us the chance, yeah. And thus, in the Caitanya-caritamrita, you will find more emphasis on Vraja Lila. That's why all our acharyas have asked us to go through Caitanya-caritamrita very carefully. And in many temples, there is daily classes of the Caitanya-caritamrita. Yeah. So in Sri Chaitanya Gaurimat, for example, we have Caitanya-caritamrita class every single morning. The first class is Caitanya-caritamrita class, because this is really the core of our approach, of Vraja-bhakti in our sadhana. We have to be very clear that when we do internal sadhana, when we really pray to Krishna, do kirtan, when we do any devotional activity, which should fill as much of our time as possible, of course, then we have to do it in this mood of Vraja-bhakti in order to reach Vrindavan. And so we will hear one shloka from the Caitanya-caritamrita. In fact, 2-3 shlokas we will hear, 4 shlokas to be precise, from 2 different passages from Caitanya-caritamrita. And we will focus now on the difference again between this approach to Radha Krishna and what we heard before in the Srimad-Bhagavatam. This is from the Adi Lila 4:1-2-3-4. Na jani radhara preme ache kota bala, je bale amare kore sarvada vivala. Radhikara prema guru ami shishya nata, sadama nana nritya nachaya udbhata. Translation: I do not know the strength of Radha's love, with which she always overwhelms me. The love of Radhika is my teacher, and I am her dancing pupil. Her prema makes me dance various novel dances. So here we see very clearly how Krishna is now completely immersed in this mood of Vrindavan bhakti, where he is not aware anymore that he is Bhagavan at all. And instead of saying, like in the Bhagavad-Gita, that the entire universes are bewildered by his potency, now he says that he is bewildered. He's overwhelmed by the love of Radha. So how is it possible? It's possible because the mood is now entirely different. The mood of worship. The mood of worship has shifted from Aishwarya to Madhurya, to sweetness, to Vraja Madhurya, the sweetness of the worship of Vrindavan. He even says, I do not know. I do not know the strength of Radha's love. So Bhagavan himself is saying that. Of course, like we are hearing all the time now, when we are more immersed in Vraja-bhakti, he himself doesn't feel as Bhagavan, he doesn't identify as Bhagavan. He's unaware that he's Bhagavan. And in the Gita, Krishna takes on the role of the supreme teacher, Adi Guru, and he is also. But here, Krishna says, the love of Radhika is my teacher, and I'm her dancing pupil. The roles are suddenly reversed. Suddenly, Krishna becomes the student, and his devotee, Radharani, becomes the teacher. So, dear devotees, this is a very beautiful example of how this focus from Krishna's opulences or Aishwarya suddenly, gradually shifts in our scriptures. And sometimes it can be confusing to people who are not aware of why this is so. It seems to be like an apparent contradiction, but it isn't. Because whenever Krishna is completely mesmerized by the love of his devotees, it doesn't make him less Bhagavan, but it actually makes him more Bhagavan, because in Vrindavan, he is the original Bhagavan. Govindam Adi Purusham Samahang Bhajami. Yeah? Govinda, the one who increases the pleasure of the cows and the senses of the Vraja-bhakti, goals, senses particularly of the Vraja-bhakti. He is Adi Purusham, he is the original enjoyer, the original male, the original Bhagavan. So although he is not aware of that, he is the very original Bhagavan. So if we understand this tattva, then this is not confusing to us, but rather it's very much inspiring, and we want to be more and more immersed into this mood of Vraja Upasana, worship of Vrindavan. Now, the final two shlokas from Caitanya-caritamrita we'll hear today are also from the Adi Leela for chapter 15 to 16th verse. Premorasha nirjasha korite ashvadana ragamarga bhakti loke korite pracharana Rashika Shekara Krishna Parama Karuna Ei Dui Hetu Hoite Ichhara Udgama. Translation. The Lord's desire to appear. This is talking about Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So, the desire of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to appear, or the desire of Krishna to appear as Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, was born from two reasons. The Lord wanted to taste the sweet essence of the mellows of love of God, and he wanted to propagate devotional service in the world on the platform of spontaneous attraction. Thus, he is known as supremely jubilant and as the most merciful of all. So, here it's very important for us to understand what this really means. So the first reason of the appearance of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is to taste the sweet essence of the mellow of love of God, of his devotees. Yeah. Just like, sugar cannot taste itself, it needs, Krishna cannot relish his own sweetness without having that vision or darshan of the mood of the devotee. So he has to be fully immersed in empathy. He has to take on the role of a devotee. He has to be immersed in the mood of his own devotees of Vrindavan. And he does that in the form of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So then he fulfills his three internal desires that we were talking about before. We will talk about those more in the future. And then the external reason for Mahaprabhu's appearance is Raga Marga Bhakti Loke Kurite Prachara, to preach to the people of the world the path of Raga Marga. Yeah, this means Raganuga Bhakti. But of course, this translates to Vraja-bhakti. In our discussion here, we're focusing on the comparison between opulent worship and sweet worship in Vrindavan, Vraja-bhakti. So very clearly, the Lord descended 500 years ago for this very purpose, and to relish the sweetness of the mellows of love of God of his devotees, and to preach Raganuga Bhakti or Vraja-bhakti to one and all. So why this is so important is because this is really the peak of mercy in the entire cycle of creation. That's why here there are two names given to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. One is Rasika Shekhara. Yeah. The best expert in relishing, or the supreme expert in relishing all the rasas, especially the rasas of his devotees, which he cannot relish as Krishna. He relishes now as Gaura Krishna, Gaura Hari. And then Parama Karuna, the most merciful, because Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he is that form of Godhead who is now giving out this beautiful path of Raganuga Bhakti, by which only we can come to Vrindavan. This Vraja-bhakti is very, very particular, very precise, and thus we are advised to very, very carefully hear from the pure devotees and their associates how to attain that. And for that purpose, of course, we should study Caitanya-caritamrita and all the other scriptures that focus on Vraja-bhakti, especially the scriptures left behind by the Goswamis, such as Rupa Goswami's Bhakti-rasamrita Sindhu, etc., etc. Yeah? So for today, we conclude here with these comparisons of different verses of these three main granthas of our tradition: the Bhagavad-Gita, Srimad-Bhagavatam, and Caitanya-caritamrita. So I'm opening the round now for questions and comments, and I'm welcoming all devotees who have joined. In the middle also, Panchakalpatarubhyacha, Kripa Sindhubhyacha, Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo.
Prabhuji, you said that Mahaprabhu Chaitanya has two names. First, like
Rasika Shekhara.
most merciful, Param Karuna mein, and the first one was that Ras
Yes,
Shekhara.
Rasika. Yeah,
Can you
Rasika.
little bit brief?
Please repeat. I didn't get. Can you briefly what?
Yeah, like you said the two names, na?
Yes.
Most merciful, and then Rasik
Shekhara.
Shekhara. So can you briefly explain this Rasik Shekhara? Like you told that he was the Rasik of the devotion. He was relishing
Yes.
the mellows of devotion.
Okay.
Okay?
Yes, correct. See, actually, Rasika Shekhara is a typical name of Krishna, not just Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Because Krishna is also the most expert relisher of transcendental mellows. Yeah? So there is no other form of Godhead where all the rasas are fully relished as in Krishna Lila, in Radha Krishna Lila particularly. There's no other form, there's no other pastime of the Lord. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is also Rasika Shekhara. And sometimes we forget that because we're focusing so much on the external pastimes of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, of preaching Raganuga Bhakti, or not even that, because mostly we're engaged in Vaidhi Bhakti. We even forget about what he actually came to preach, which is Raganuga Bhakti. And what to speak of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu also being Rasika Shekhara. But he is. And he is a very, very particular, special form of Rasika Shekhara. Yeah. Namely, he is the only form of Bhagavan, of Krishna, in which his innermost desires are fulfilled. And these are to relish the sweetness and ecstasies of the devotees when they are serving him, because he, Krishna, is Adipurusham. So he cannot understand the mood of devotion. As a supreme enjoyer, you're receiving worship. You're not giving worship. And so he had to become his own devotee in the form of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu by taking on the moods of devotions of his pure devotees empathically. And now he is relishing, empathically, he's relishing the sweetest of all the rasas that there are in all of creation, because these are not in his heart. The sweetest of all rasas are in the heart of his devotees, especially Radharani. So that's why he is Radha Bhava Angikari. He is now relishing the mood of Radharani especially, and all the other devotees. And this mood creates the most sublime of all rasas. So Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is even more Rasika Shekhara than Krishna, because now he is tasting the love of his devotees, which supersedes the love of Krishna, like he himself was saying just now in the shloka we read from Caitanya-caritamrita, that he is bewildered by the love of Radhika. He doesn't even know the limits of her love, because it goes beyond the love that he can relish in his heart as Krishna. Only when he is relishing the love of Radha in her heart, then he can taste the limit of love, the limit of rasa. That's why he is called, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is called Rasika Shekhara. And Parama Karuna, we have discussed Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Parama Karuna because now he is opening up his own inner relishment, he's sharing with the devotees. And on top of that, he is giving the path, the sadhana, the way to reach Vrindavan, eternal Vrindavan, Vraja-bhakti, Raganuga-bhakti. And that's why he's the most merciful, Parama Karuna. So these two names are there in this particular shloka given to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Rasika Shekhara and Parama Karuna.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Very nice. Thank you.
My pleasure. Anybody else kindly unmute and contribute.
Prabhu. Oh, it's freeze. Prabhu.
Talk.
Hare Krishna, Dedi. Yes.
Who is qualified to do? I mean, our Guru Vargas, and who is qualified to do this meditation in Vrindavan? Only our Guru Vargas, because I mean, we only. I told by myself, I only can remember, if I can remember, what the guru say or what they hear in class, but this meditation, who is on?
Yes. So that's a very important question. Thank you so much, because there's a lot of confusion on this topic, right? Usually, in certain societies, not to point fingers or anything, people have the wrong idea that Vaidhi-bhakti is like the first part of sadhana, and then when you reach a certain maturity, you graduate to the second part of your sadhana, and then you can practice Raganuga-bhakti. And this is the general concept in many societies, knowingly or unknowingly. Devotees have this wrong understanding. What's true about this is that you need some basic qualification for Raganuga Bhakti. Of course, you need also basic qualification for Vaidhi Bhakti. For both, you need basic qualifications. But what's wrong is this idea that you have to practice first Vaidhi Bhakti and then Raganuga Bhakti. This is completely wrong, because you can transition. There are parallel sadhanas. They're always parallel. Even if you practice Raganuga Bhakti, you still have a lot of elements that include a lot of Vaidhi. So there are parallel tracks, and you can anytime transition. Right now, you can transition, and even when we hear these shlokas that contain both elements, we transition all the time. We jump all the time from seeing Krishna as Bhagavan to seeing him as Govinda, etc. So this is something that happens very quick and spontaneous. It's a question of darshan, really, a question of vision, of perspective. And ultimately, Srila Rupa Goswami, he says in Bhakti-rasamrita Sindhu, he very clearly defines what is the only qualification to practice Raganuga Bhakti. And he says, Tatra lolyam api moolam ekalam. The only price or qualification for Raganuga Bhakti is lolyam, which is an intense greed to follow in the footsteps of the Vrajavasis, the eternal Vrajavasis, who are called Ragatmika Bhaktas. Yeah. So sometimes again there's a confusion between Ragatmika Bhakti and Raganuga Bhakti. So Ragatmika Bhakti is the perfected bhakti of the eternal residents of Vrindavan in Goloka, whereas Raganuga Bhakti is what we are practicing. We meaning all devotees who are trying to come to Vrindavan, who are trying to follow the proper path to reach there, which is Vraja-bhakti, which is Raganuga Bhakti. And I'll just pull up again this shloka, because here it's very beautifully mentioned also in Caitanya-caritamrita, the shloka that we heard just now. So about the two reasons of appearance. So prema rasha nirjasa korite asvadan, raga marga bhakti loke korite pracharan. So here it's mentioned to whom Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is preaching this raga marga or Raganuga Bhakti. And again, the word pracharan is used here. Sometimes we hear that Raganuga Bhakti is not for preaching. It's not for the general populace. But here, very clearly, Vishwanath Vrindavan Das Thakur has mentioned that he is preaching Ragamargi to whom? Loke. Loke means the general populace. Let me see what is mentioned here in the translation. He wanted to propagate devotional service in the world. In the world means in the general world, right? But loke really means, the general populace of the world. Loka means the world. Loke means to the world or in the world in Bengali. So it's for the general people. It's not for some very exalted people who are you know, on the higher stages of love of God. Of course, we will later enter into this discussion, like where is really the platform of devotion you should be in to go deeper into the Raganuga bhakti practices. That's another topic. Yeah, we can look into that later when we will talk about the sadhana aspects. But in general, this can happen anytime. And Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur mentions very, very clearly in all his scriptures that as soon as you have some very particular attraction, when you hear the Vraja Leelas, the pastimes of Krishna, you know, when you feel some attraction towards these pastimes and you feel this greed in your heart, then you have the qualification. It's not anything else. It's not that, you know, you have to be completely freed from any anarthas. And this is important. Why? Why this is so important? Because Srila Rupa Goswami in Bhakti-rasamrita Sindhu very clearly, he starts talking about Raganuga Bhakti under the chapter of Sadhana Bhakti. So Raganuga Bhakti is not the goal, as some people say. It's a sadhana. And what is the meaning of sadhana? It's for a sadhaka. And who is a sadhaka? A sadhaka is someone who is not a siddha. He's not perfect. He has anarthas. He is struggling like you and I. She is having issues, you know, and so that's the definition of a sadhaka. Otherwise, we would be siddhas, you know, and then it would never be reachable for us. But yes, it is reachable. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came to preach Raganuga Bhakti Loke, in the world, in general. And his entire exemplification also of how to practice Raganuga Bhakti speaks for itself. You know, he was an ecstatic dancer and preacher and chanter, and he was mostly immersed in the eternal pastimes during his preaching pastimes, especially. Yeah, not when he was Nimai Pandit, when he was a teacher. That is a completely different pastime. But as soon as he got initiated, after that, he became a bhavuka. He became completely immersed in the internal relishment of these internal moods. So it's a very important question you're asking, and we cannot fully do justice to this right here, right now. I'm only giving you some brief understanding of the concepts that we have heard from our Guru Varga and of the misconceptions that are out there, so that we can gradually clear this as we will discuss in the future more about the sadhana aspects. Yes.
Prabhu, the Krishna is not giving Raganuga Bhakti easily. That's why Mahaprabhu came, and he is not seeing any patra, any limitation, caste, creed, anything. No?
Yes,
He's freely. So that's the way we get. Gurudev always said, if you die in Navdeep Dham, you can get up in Vrindavan Dham easily. So,
yes, Prabhu.
Yeah, directly, never ever we will get chance to go. Impossible task. As a Jivatma, no, we are in marginal energy.
Right.
So that is impossible task. So the Vraja-bhakti is reserved only for those who are like, his own associates, like that. But Krishna is reserved for them. Not easily going to give for them also. What to speak like us? Impossible. So that's why Mahaprabhu is very, very compassionate. He distributing freely. He's not checking any patra, apatra, is eligible or not. He's giving directly. So that's why we had to go through Navdeep Dham, and Mahaprabhu is relishing 18 years in Radharani's mood. He's relishing 18 years. So that one he's giving, no? He came to give only that.
Yes, Prabhu.
So we are confident in that. Yeah.
Yes, Prabhu, thank you. That's very important for us to understand that, even what you were saying is true. Raganuga Bhakti was given to people, even of all castes. I mean, to instruct people in sadhana was considered a wrong thing to do for those, for most of the Brahminical people during Mahaprabhu's time. If you teach to the lower castes, you know, especially if you're from a higher caste, but he, of course, he breached all these boundaries, and he completely, you know, made this ocean of love of God, of Vrindavan, accessible to one and all. And I just want to quote or talk about one particular pastime that is an exemplification of this, what you are saying. There was this, it's a very extreme example, but really it shows the limit of it. There was this butcher, and this butcher was a Muslim, but he loved Krishna so much. Okay, I don't know all the details, but I can give you the gist of this pastime. It's a very beautiful pastime. So he had a scale on which he would put the meat, and on the other side he had different weights. And then when people come, he would, you know, say, this is so much, you know, this costs so much. And then he wanted to please Krishna, and so he knew that Krishna likes the jhulan. Yeah, he likes to be on a swing. So he put his Krishna deity, I don't remember what it was, whether it was a shalagram or a deity or whatever, he put him on the scale, so that when he is, you know, weighing up the different pieces of meat, Krishna would go up and down, you know, like it's nice for him. You know, he was thinking like that, very, you know, spontaneous attraction to Krishna beyond, you know, the rules and regulation of Vaidhi. But he was just trying to please him. He's focusing on pleasing Krishna is already pleasing him, even if you haven't done anything yet. So then one devotee came and he saw this deity is there on the scale with meat, and he got enraged and said, how can you do this? You know, this is a great offense. Don't you know that, you know, you have to put Krishna on an altar where he's clean, and you know, it's not, at least put him on a clean altar, wash your hands, take snan before you worship him. But this is just offensive, you know. So then he became very shocked, and he said, oh, okay, I'm very sorry, I didn't know. So, you know, he put the deity on an altar. And then that very night, that Krishna deity came in the dream of that devotee, and he scolded him. He said, how dare you take me away from that scale? I was enjoying so much, you know, because that devotee, he loves me, you know.
He's massaging, no? He's hitting with the meat, the soligram. He's got a very good massage. So,
whatever, you know, this is why for many devotees, even very ardent devotees who are steeped in Vaidhi Bhakti, it's very difficult to accept this and to understand it. That's why Krishna has to come in the dreams and, you know, affirm what he has been saying and what is written in the book. Still, he has already, you know, these books are available, but for people to really have faith in it is very difficult if you are too much steeped in Vaidhi. That's why this transition that is very much supported, especially by Caitanya-caritamrita, is so important. And that's why it's so important that we talk about Vraja-bhakti in particular and emphasize it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Haribol.
Hare Krishna, Vidyapati Prabhu, so nice to see you.
Nice to see you. I was prompted by Mirabai that this session will be going on, and I thought maybe I should anyhow. I'm glad that I did do that. If you allow me, I would like to mention an example. Once I heard from a devotee he says the following thing, that, in India, particularly, even right now, there are rivers, Ganga, Yamuna, whatever river, you got to cross over the one bank to the other bank by boat. Once there was a person from the other bank. The other bank is just full of temples, very, 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 very nice temple. And the other one, one of them is going to, one side of the bank is full of temples, and the other side is full of material things, for enjoyment, like that. So once a boat, one devotee sat on the boat, and actually two persons. I can't get it clear what I have, what I'm thinking right now. One of them is trying to cross the boat to see the temple, because to worship the temple, worship Krishna, and so on. And the other one was going the other way around from the temple, going the other side of the temple, and they are trying to go and do some sense gratification activities, like just going to cinema or whatever, that's sensory. So in the middle of the whole thing, there was a storm, a big storm. And when that storm came about, all of them were drowned, were drowned. So Yamaraj came, the Vishnu Duta came and pick up the devotee, pick up the person who was going to the temple, okay? And the Yamadutas went in and tried to pick up, save the person who's going to go to sense gratification. So hey, it must be a mistake. How can that happen? That person going to the temple, has a purpose of going up there to worship the Lord. The other person who is from the temple side, going up there to do some sense gratification. And then Yamadutas and Vishnudutas came in and picked the wrong person, seemingly picked the wrong person. They say, how come, what's happening, So this is what what was happening. So he said, no, it's correct. Why? Why is it correct? Because the person who's going to the temple were thinking that, I have to go to the temple. I wish I would go be the other side so that I can have some sense gratification activities. He's in his mind is thinking that way, although he going up there physically to worship the temple. The other way around, the other person who is in the heading towards the sense gratification activities, saying that, why am I wasting my time? I should be worshiping the Lord, like that. So in this way, it is correct. So this is one story I like to tell for that. But more than that, I want to tell the story is that I wanted to tell the audience in this case, I think mainly are from Australia. I don't know where else, but I can recognize most of Australia, that Radha Madhav, I got to know him quite some time ago. He is a writer, philosophically very sound. He lives in Vrindavan. He speaks the language of Bengali and Hindi, and I think he understands Sanskrit quite well. So this is a very unique situation that Radha Madhav is in. Whereas for me, those people are listening to me right now will know that here's one guy who doesn't able to express himself so much. He doesn't know how to express himself. That is what I am. You know, I can't express myself that much in the way I speak. But one thing I'd like to share, because the participants are not too many, so I can share a little bit. I can confide and do some to share my thing. Is that I don't come from a very good background, but I have this desire to know God. And from very basic, you know, Bhagavad-Gita, even like that, you know. When I'm studying, doing this thing, there's one thing I find very beautiful about this Mahaprabhu's teaching is that, and Srimad-Bhagavatam and Bhagavad-Gita is that there is a lot of love behind all the teaching. And to me, the essence of all the teaching is actually love. Prem, if you want to call it prem, you know. And this is what I'm attracted to. So I think in general, I'm not an unusual guy, but I think in general, people who are involved in this group, I can say with fair certainty that the audience in this Zoom meeting have some feeling for Krishna, and they would like to know. They know about. They can find the attraction of prem, of love, in the teaching. Now, so that's a natural first stage group. I don't know what you want to call it, Vedi-bhakti or Raghunaga-bhakti, doesn't matter. That is the first stage that you want to do it. Then, as you grow, as you become a little bit more matured, no, I wouldn't say a lot mature, a little bit more matured, you know, and like me, and for years, I'm saying that, wow, the love is so great. I want to taste that love. You know, why that love is so beautiful. I want to taste that love. So many times, so many devotees I have encountered express the same thing. I want to taste that love. Now I want to go one step further beyond that. That is a good stage to be in, but there's one stage even further, and that stage is seva, service. Because tasting love is also in your mind. It says that I want to taste the love. It means it's some form of sense gratification. And you know, what I'm saying, I know it's not found in word by word. I can't keep sloka on that. But basically, we have to understand that to do seva, to do service, is more important than the taste of Krishna, taste of love. That is a very important point that I like to share. Now, whether you want to agree with me or not, that's up to you. But to me, seva is much more important. That is why Krishna says that worshiping me is good, but serving Vaishnava is even better. You know, it's even better. Why is it better? Because the service he provides them is so, I can't pay. Like Mahaprabhu, you would mention the sloka somewhere, that I can't pay. The Krishna is telling the gopis that, you know, I can't repay you the love that you have given to me, or the love you have given me. So it's the service. The seva is very important. I think I want to leave that with that. It's very difficult for me to explain it why, but if you can meditate on this, please meditate on this, then you realize that you will go beyond trying to taste the love of God. Hare Krishna. I hope that helps to everyone listening. Hare Krishna. I can't hear you. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Vidyapati Prabhu. And for all devotees who may not be aware who Vidyapati Prabhu is, like Ayush Prabhu and others who have joined us recently, he is a wonderful disciple of Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, and he was very, very dear to our Guru Maharaj also. He is living in Australia, So it's very fortunate for the devotees there in Australia that they have such wonderful association there. And I also, of course, want to encourage them to take more association with Vidyapati Prabhu, because I met him a few times in India with Guru Maharaj and once also in Malaysia, but I never forget our wonderful encounters. And he is really, really focusing on the seva aspects, like he has expressed, especially chanting, and especially chanting with humility, which is, of course, the secret of how you can always chant. You have to do it in a very humble mood. And I invite Prabhuji also to speak sometimes, especially on this topic of chanting with this mood of humility. He speaks very wonderfully about that. And so I'm very, very happy that you're here, and I feel very much encouraged by your association here with Vidyapati Prabhu, and what you have said is very valuable. We will all meditate on this. And here we are, by the way, we're sitting in Seva Kunj. So this is the heart of Vrindavan, and in the heart of Vrindavan, what is Krishna doing? He is doing seva. Who is seva? The seva of Radharani's lotus feet. So like you have said correctly, ultimately it's about seva. And only when you do seva, you can relish. And I should also say the opposite also applies. Only when you relish the mood of someone else, you can do seva properly, because only when you know what's in the heart of someone else, you can properly serve that person. But what you have said is very important, that relishing should not be in the mood of enjoyment, that it's I who want to relish, but it should be as a support for the service. We should know what is in the heart of someone else so we can serve that person better. And seva is the ultimate, as is very well understood from the fact that Seva Kunj is the heart of Vrindavan. So we will continue this meditation. Thank you so much, Vidyapati Prabhu, for giving this to us. And very happy you're here today. And please always bless us with your association here in this satsang. Thank you so much.
I'll thank you.
So thank you all devotees for joining us today. And if there's any more short questions or comments, we can take one or two more, and then we will conclude. Is there anybody who wants to contribute? Please unmute yourself now. Okay, so I think that's it for today. Thank you so much, all dear devotees, for joining our satsang today on Vraja-kathamrita. And please join us again next time. Panchakalpa tarvyacha kripa patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavibhyo.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Hare
How are
Krishna,
you?
Hare Krishna.
How are you, Prabhu?
I'm okay.
Okay,
Hare
that's
me
good.
about
Good to
yourself.
see you. Yes,
Yeah.
we are good, Prabhu. We are good.
Okay.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu.
Damodar, are you feeling well?
Radhe Radhe.
Yes, are you feeling better?
Yeah, they're feeling better, Prabhu. Now it's better, Prabhu.
Better.